yo, listen, this is something I've been meaning to cover for a while, this mass hysteria around crime waves in Los Angeles. But I do suspect these sorts of stories are going to keep popping off. Now, local news is mega right-wing. I say this all the time. They're super reactionary. You've probably seen the famous, like, Sinclair Broadcasting local news coverage where they just basically say the exact same thing. That we would be like, oh, this is what happens in North Korea. They're evil. Most of these local news outlets, though, for the most part, they definitely do hype up reactionary narratives. You probably recall watching the riots that were occurring during the BLM protests. They would literally send a news chopper outside of like a sneaker store and just literally take as much drone footage as they possibly can of like black kids looting the sneaker store. Like, you know, it's just always tropes. They're huge with that sort of stuff. They're very, very effective at doing racial agitprop. And they, more importantly than that, are definitely the most trusted resource in news. Most people consider local news to be the most trustworthy and the most most unbiased form of news, even though it is. Yeah, they'll always show like the same burning car over and over again, you know, all that good stuff, right? So now that shit is like kicked it up a notch. Basically, every one of my rich friends, literally every single one, has had their very own Casey Neistat moment. If you recall, Casey Neistat was like, I mean, he went from like fucking Black Lives Matter to cut the tall trees the moment that like someone broke into his car, right? And I feel like that's precisely what's happening with a lot of people in California. A lot of libs in California are showing once again that, you know, they are simply social fascists. Not to, you know, bring it the age-old Stalinist argument here, but they're going mass the fuck off. Why are they going mass the fuck off? Well, because there's mass hysteria. I'm gonna be honest, like, it's hard not to go mass the fuck off and like lose your fucking mind if you're just a dumb person who doesn't know anything and you're just seeing from every outlet, including your Instagram feed, is telling you like, look at these black teenagers stealing. What do I do when they steal my shit out of my car? I'm poor too, bro. Dude, that is literally what cops are for. That is precisely the point of policing. Okay, why do we have this conversation where even the people who are like, oh, I love cops, I want to kiss cops, and the people who are like, fuck cops, constantly forget that like that's the only reason why they should exist. Okay, like that's literally it. There is precisely no other reason almost for them to fucking exist, and they don't do that one fundamental thing that they're supposed to do. And everybody understands this. Even the biggest bootlickers are like, yeah, I mean, you know, cops are just, they don't care. It seems like they just don't do anything, right? It's always so funny when people are like, well, shit gets stolen from my car. Like, what do we do? I don't know, man. Fucking, that's what cops are supposed to do. They're supposed to fucking deal with that, you know, but they don't, because they don't give a fuck. If you are in Southern California, Northern California, if you're in any part of California, you have 1,000% seen at least like one or two rich people just fucking go buck wild on the timeline and openly say some racist bullshit. And that comes from outlets like this.
The unprecedented crime wave that we're currently experiencing falls squarely at the feet of the Democrats in the form of two bad propositions and a weak on crime approach. Mob lootings are happening daily. Walgreens are closing quite a few stores forever because organized...
Okay, mob loots are happening daily. Mob loots. Walgreens are closing, which we already know. If you've been in here, we already fucking know. Walgreens were not closing because of the crime wave, okay? They have been downsizing and closing up in like high value real estate areas for a long ass time. There hasn't been an unprecedented crime wave in New York, but more fucking Walgreens shuttered in fucking New York. What's up with that? You do not get that same kind of fucking coverage about that. Local news and their bias. Someone stole $950 worth of items from a Walgreens. There were 309 news stories about it. Walgreens was caught stealing $4.5 million from employees. It just got one single story. Yep. Because just like violence, there is an understanding of the type of theft that we do not consider to be theft. The state has a monopoly on violence. So when a cop tear gasses a protester, that's not considered violence. But when the protesters kick the tear gas canister back, then that's violence. That is assault against a law enforcement officer. And the same attitude exists in this kind of theft as well. Petty theft or whatever the fuck is seen as like actual theft, but wage theft is seen as just the cost of doing business. But I don't even want to talk about that, okay? I don't even want to talk about the whole like, oh, well, what about, wage theft or whatever? I've covered that a million times over. Nobody gives a fuck, okay? You're not going to be able to convince a guy who is like terrified that, teenagers are going to come and break their skull in with a fucking hammer and steal their jewelry or some shit from their house in their like nice little suburban home because they're watching that on TV non-fucking stop, even though they're not a Louis Vuitton storefront, but they think that, someone's going to do that to them. Okay, so we already addressed the Walgreens story. It's bullshit. So let's continue with the rest of it.
Shoplifting is costing $25,000 a day per store, according to some reports.
No. Oh, no. Anyway, let's keep going.
Target stores in San Francisco are reducing store hours to reduce shoplifting losses. Two propositions proposed by Democrats have led to this situation. Proposition 47, passed by misinformed voters in 2014, was deceptively titled the Safe Neighborhoods and Schools Act. It reduced drug possession and even some property crimes from a felony to a misdemeanor. It made most anything stolen under $950 a petty theft and allowed for many people already convicted under tough.
Oh, that seems really interesting. So let's talk about this fucking crime wave. I know that it is like functionally impossible for someone who is fucking terrified because they're seeing this everywhere to listen to the words I am about to tell you. You might be watching all the Ring doorbell videos and every other thing that you see on your Instagram timeline, but when you look at the actual fucking data, this notion of a crime wave is completely false. Crime always goes up during the holiday season. That's just an unfortunate reality. Crime also is not a consequence of like bad actors being lazy but they want to do crimes because they're bad, but instead because they're fucking starving or they're poor and they have no other opportunity or no other outlet. Those are the main reasons why crime occurs. And the way to solve that is by tackling it systemically rather than increasing and beefing up police brutality or police security. The greatest example of that is because police brutality and police militarization has greatly increased, and yet there's still this crime wave apparently. Well, guess what, actually? There is no fucking crime wave. Turns out the crime wave that they're talking about is specifically homicides that are up by a lot. Homicides that are a consequence of gang activity in those very same black and brown neighborhoods that most of these rich people would never fucking go to anyway. When you look at the thefts in the state of California, outside of the increase in theft that is a consistent factor during the holiday season, burglaries are down. They're fucking down. But if you exclusively got your fucking news from psychotic pieces of shit like this, you would think Los Angeles is literally on fucking fire. And there is just crazy amounts of crime going on non-fucking stop. And maybe some of you are like, well, I don't fucking know what's going on. I don't really follow this shit. But like every part of my fucking news feed has been absolutely just polluted with this stuff. Bro, LA is ghetto right now. You have to agree. That's bullshit. That's just straight up bullshit. There is so much struggle, torment, and human misery in every fucking street corner in Los Angeles. And it is in the form of overdoses, people dying because they're addicted to drugs and have no way to recover, people dying because they're living out in the fucking street. And that is an ongoing problem that liberals refuse to actually solve. This is happening in every American city, and it's going to continue happening in every American city. There's vids all over Instagram of LA and armed robberies. I know. I am familiar. The reality is that we are hyper focusing on the crime that is a constant factor, okay? Or armed robberies that is a constant factor. But if you look at the statistics, they're actually fucking down. So I don't know what you're talking about. Another person that they're constantly fucking blaming for this is the woke DA and woke prosecutors. George I don't want to fuck his name up, but the California prosecutor is being used as like the main reason for why this is happening. And there is so much agitprop, so much fucking anti-George Gascon agitprop out there because of the LA district attorney and his point of view on reducing recidivism. Same thing in San Francisco for Chesa Bowden. Even Mike Bonin, who we've talked about on this broadcast before, who is a council member, ex-homeless person. Everywhere around the fucking country, you have these people that are progressive, that are doing a decent job as best as they can, and all of these psychotic fucking weirdo suburban shitheads and reactionary accounts are basically using this as an opportunity to spread misinformation and whip up the fucking people in the suburbs into a goddamn frenzy, and it's working. It's very, very, very effective. So let's watch what else he says.
Tougher standards to be resentenced. But it didn't stop there. Another Proposition 57, shamelessly titled the Public Safety and Rehabilitation Act, gave nonviolent felons a path for early release, where parole boards could only now consider an inmate's most recent crime, not their entire criminal history. Translation: more felons released onto our streets. After the
this is another talking point that Gavin Newsom released 76,000 prisoners, violent prisoners, into the streets. That's another lie. We're going to get to that as well.
State legislature and progressive DAs like George Gascon set us up to fail with these propositions. Many of our elected officials fell victim to the loud and ignorant cries to defund the police. Even though we could all see how that
Another incredible lie. The police have been defunded to the tune of $120 million. Is another propaganda talking point that you see regularly. All of these are fucking lies. I've talked about the different propaganda points in the past about like defunding the police is the reason for the rise in crime or whatever. Or even that the police have been defunded. The police have not been defunded. This might come as a surprise, but the police have not been fucking defunded at all. At most, police funds have increased, okay? But that increase has been shaved off to the tune of like 1%, 2%, 3%. The Los Angeles Police Department budget is still $1.7 billion to $3 billion, depending on, you know, what you are adding on to it, okay? There's a crisis happening in Los Angeles. That's the main talking point. The police have been defunded by $150 million. False. Gavin Newsom released 76,000 violent inmates into the city. Triple false. And now we've seen a 200% increase in murders and an alarming increase of robberies in some of the wealthiest areas of Los Angeles. Yes, there is a 200% increase in murders. This is true. Almost entirely related to gang activity. Why is that happening? Because, unfortunately, there's a lot of fucking poverty. That's a complete fucking falsehood. So I'll show you some fucking data, okay? That's the other funny part, is that like they don't even fucking hide it. Like it's not like their own data shows this reality, okay? That crime is fucking down. Look at crime overall. The only thing that is up, rapes are down. The only thing that's actually up is homicides. Homicides happening as a consequence of, you know, gang shit. According to the FBI, 2020, the property crime was by far the lowest it's been in decades, and the lowest has been for the entire life of most living Americans, for the record. Yeah, it's literally not only down, it's down everywhere. Guys, it's down, and it's down everywhere. And I don't know how to deal with this other than basically talk about the reality of the situation and how much people who are super biased and reactionary are like changing the narrative and changing the reality that you experience all around you, other than just show you what the truth is. But the truth is not as sexy or not as captivating as watching a fucking video of someone, you know, doing a quick smash and grab in what is considered a follow home robbery. Okay, it sucks. It literally fucking sucks. Yeah, rise in robberies sparked police concern. Increase include a number of armed follow away incidents. The annual number of robberies in Los Angeles has fucking decreased since 2017, with a big drop off in these last 2 years, with a massive drop off. What triggers moral panic media cycles like this? I think it's a powder keg. The media has the primary function of operating as the manufactured consent machine that will go along with institutions that capital owners deem necessary for their existence, and also the continuation of the pre-established hierarchical order. Okay? Police are a part of that. Police protect the Capitol. It's the last line of defense. So they're basically working in unison. The other reason is the profit motive, because these stories drive clicks. These stories get a lot of eyeballs, and they retain a lot of eyeballs. We constantly talk about how Facebook is so fucked up for allowing misinformation to spread on their platform because they want to sell more ads, and because they know that people that look at like reactionary content or fake news are more likely to stay on the website. Well, they're doing that on the local news side too. They're doing that on the news side in general. So that's precisely what's going on here. This stuff is just fucking completely psychotic, and it does not correspond to the actual data, the real data. In September, October, and November, instances of robberies have increased, okay? But overall, Los Angeles robberies are 12.7% lower compared to 2019. The increase, if you hyper focus on 2021 or the past couple of months, is there. That increase happens during holiday season. But overall, it's continuously decreasing, and it's declined at a faster rate. The vast majority of the 200 robberies reported last week were street robberies, said LA Police Chief Michael Moore. Overall robberies are up 4.7 compared to 2020. Over the last year, violent crime in LA has increased by 6.3. Violent crime, for the most part, is increased on the side of homicides. Even though robberies are up, they are so fucking down from pre-COVID that like COVID era statistics in 2020 will make it seem like there's like a fucking big boost, but that's not real. I wonder what was a factor in robberies being so fucking low, other than people not going out and, you know, cohabitating. Perhaps maybe, I don't know, government assistance and almost the damn near entire eradication of extreme poverty in the country in the form of stimulus checks had something to do with it. I don't know. Some cops or law enforcement officials are using this as an opportunity to basically fucking spear dick the narrative that cops are demoralized and they can't do their jobs because they're in their fucking fifis. Others are saying that the police have been defunded, and that's precisely why they do not have the bandwidth to deal with every single this massive spike in crime. It's fucking bullshit. If you ask the cops, they say they are demoralized because people are calling us racist, so we're not going to do our jobs because we're more inclined to just stay behind and let it happen. If you ask the cops, they say they're not proactive in making stops because they're worried that they're going to be fucking clipped and shipped. Bullshit. They're also claiming that criminals feel more emboldened because they know cops won't do anything because they have the ultimate tool of calling them racist if they are doing crimes. Now that is a laughable fucking, that is like a child. A child came up with that. An actual child came up with that idea. And if you believe that, you are also baby brained. And I'm sorry to say, but that's precisely why they can get away with it, because they have baby brains and you have baby brain. So that's why you believe the baby brain bullshit. You exaggerate? Wait, you think I'm exaggerating? Captain Paul Vernon ran the Los Angeles Police Department's CompStat division until this past April. Vernon spent much of 2020 trying to figure out what was behind the rise in killings. Some were quick to blame the spike on COVID, but Vernon says homicides and aggravated assaults were up in the first 2 months of 2020 before the pandemic took hold in the United States. When stay-at-home orders were issued in March, there was a large drop in property crime accompanied by a smaller drop in violent crime. Then in May, George Floyd was murdered by Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin. When he looked at the data, the first thing Vernon noticed was the spike wasn't evenly distributed across the city. Shootings were rising in the same places that had already disproportionately high numbers, south of the 10 freeway, east of LA River. But Vernon says decrease in police presence was due to another more organic reason. If you're going to call the police racist, by the way, I was quoting that person, which is why it's funny that the chatter challenged me on this and said, huh, are you serious? If you're going to call the police racist, if you're going to call for the defunding of the police and stigmatize the police, and I also talk to fucking cops as well. So, you know, that's another thing. This tracks with what the fuck they tell me all the goddamn time too. There's going to be a natural pullback from the police. Police are not going to be as proactive in making stops and initiating activity if they believe the result of that is going to be them getting fired or being called a racist. How many cops have gotten fucking fired for a traffic stop? How many cops have gotten fucking fired for killing someone? None of this revolves around like actually fucking investigating crimes that have already occurred and solving those cases when it comes to like any number of different robberies, burglaries, whatnot, and all about like crime prevention in the form of increased police presence and traffic stops. It's never about like actually preventing crime with a systemic solution that tries to tackle the underlying reasons in which crime manifests. And it's always about preventing crime by what? Increasing police presence, where you fucking will get pulled over and get a ticket, okay? And that's how we prevent further crimes from happening. Activists and people who cover this sort of stuff say that Vernon is wrong. The idea that police demoralization could have resulted in the kinds of homicide increases we're talking about really strains credulity, says Richard Rosenfeld, a professor of criminology at the University of Missouri St. Louis. If the police are pulling back, why is it that it's only affected the homicide rates? Why not property crime rates? He adds, there could have been some impact on homicide, but a 35% increase in Los Angeles? Highly doubtful. That makes no sense. Oh man, cops are no longer patrolling the streets because I can call them racist. And that's why I'm going to do a murder. And definitely not any fucking like, you know, property crimes. I'm not going to hit a quick lick or anything like that. Just murders for me, baby. Because cops are not fucking paying attention. Let's go. Like, that's what baby-brained, idiotic suburbanites unironically believe. And it fucking blows my mind, okay? The most devious lick of all, murder. Frequency illusion, also known as the Bader-Meinhof phenomenon or frequency bias, is a cognitive bias in which after noticing something for the first time, there's a tendency to notice it more often, leading to someone to believe that it has a high frequency of occurrence. It occurs when increased awareness of something creates the illusion that it's happening more often. But plainly, the frequency illusion is when a concept or a thing you just found out about suddenly seems to crop up up everywhere. It's like thinking that if you frequent the, public fucking, what's it called? Like the crazy fight subreddit. What was it? Public outrage or whatever? Public freakouts, and thinking that like America is a nation of people who like bite each other's fucking faces. You get what I'm saying? Now, that's a very powerful bias, though. So when I tell you that, especially when it comes to like, especially when I'm talking about something that is so visceral, like a fucking armed robbery video that you watched. I've been here for 5 years. It definitely seems worse now. Dog, I've been living in West Hollywood for 5 years too, okay? I'm telling you that that's not what the fucking data shows. So I don't know what to tell you other than explain the fucking bias that you're experiencing, okay? Explain the reasons for why you're experiencing said bias, and then turning around and showing you fucking data that literally destroys that bias, and you're still like, nah, it doesn't matter. It seems worse. It's not. You're just seeing it more frequently. Now, it's also a shitty fucking situation, okay? It's also a shitty situation to be in because, like, when you feel fucking terrified because, like, you feel like crime is increasing, people are feeling unsafe, and here you have some fucking asshole telling you, well, actually, the data is not real. But then you're like, well, one fucking crime is too much. Yeah, no shit. No shit. I'm not saying it's a fucking good thing. I'm simply stating that the hysteria associated with this is the reason why you feel the way you feel, okay? That's it. So now that we've tackled the fucking increase in crime narrative, let's talk about the budget, the $150 million in budget cuts. I mean, god damn. The LAPD, they're broke boys, dude. They're fucking broke boys, dude. They don't got the cake. They're not fucking caked up. These cops, they can't get another armored personnel carrier. How else will they stop people from breaking into Louis Vuitton and jewelry stores and grabbing as much as they can if they don't have mine-sweeping vehicles? If you don't have an APC, take your broke ass home, they said. They said that. Well, that's interesting to consider, considering the fact that, first of all, the LAPD is the whopping behemoth that takes up the overwhelming majority of the budget allocated within the city. Just a fucking fat behemoth. The $150 million is just a simple shave from the slated increase that they were supposed to have on top of their overinflated military style budget. This idea that police have been successfully defunded is ridiculous. It is the most laughable concept on the planet. California is one of the states that spend the most on policing and corrections. It's number 5 after Nevada, District of Columbia, Florida, Maryland. And at number 5, you have liberal ass California. It makes up about 5.62 of our total expenditure in the state, which is, get fucked, Texas. When people talk about a decrease in police budgets, they're simply talking about a decrease in the amount that they were actually going to get extra on top of their already expansive and inflated budget. It's like a fucking 8% shave off the top of the extra money that they were going to get. And they're still fucking crying about it. Absolutely fucking ridiculous. And that budget decrease was supposed to be spent on social programs, was supposed to be spent on eradicating poverty and crime as a consequence of poverty. It was supposed to be sent on hiring and training social workers. And cops are still losing their shit. Overall, Garcetti's proposed budget for 2021 and 2022 was $1.76 billion for the Los Angeles Police Department. And these motherfuckers are crying that they got only a 3% increase. $1.76 billion. And they're literally fucking crying about $120 million being allocated elsewhere. Why they get an increase? They always get an increase, dude. Are you kidding me? They're the biggest fucking gang of all. Oh, here's a good video.
What do you think about the new measures?
I think that they're not very good because I've personally been able to shoplift from here with relative ease. So
You shoplifted here?
yeah,
Why would you do that?
I was hungry.
And so you're saying that this doesn't deter you?
Yeah.
So an overall increase in the LA budget. So then why are they getting the $150 million decrease? They're not actually getting a $150 million decrease. It's just instead of a 4% increase, they're getting a fucking 3% increase. How do you not understand that? That's what they're fucking crying about. That's the point, okay? Their budget was supposed to go up by 4%, but now it's going up by only 3%. And remember, at a time when their budget is already $1.7 billion, okay? And that's what they're fucking complaining about. Now, let's continue. The last part of the story is the most laughable one. And unfortunately, I hate to report this, but I've literally had this conversation with friends of mine who I otherwise would feel are intelligent intelligent and they're liberals, okay, and that they are well-intentioned human beings. And it is really fucking sad to see people like that behave in this way. The idea that Gavin Newsom released 75 or 76,000 violent prisoners into the streets overnight is the most laughable and idiotic fucking thing I have ever heard in my entire life. That, like, even if you don't know anything about the situation, when you're faced with this like psychotic fucking take, your immediate reaction, if you are someone with like 3.5 brain cells, should be, that sounds insane. Knowing everything you know about how the American criminal justice system works, you should recognize that that is an insane thing to say. The people make it seem as though these were people that had like done a murder yesterday and were released tomorrow. That's not how this works. You think the court system, the criminal justice system in the United States of America, is going to turn around and be like, oh, you did a murder yesterday? Well, sorry, Gavin Newsom said you can go free now. That's what people think. That's literally what people think. That's how psychotic people are. How insane is that? It's a program that's been in place since, I believe, 2014 or 2017, which is an effort to reduce the overcrowded prison system that we have, where even if you are a violent, even if you're convicted of a violent fucking crime, if you've served like a third or half of your sentence already, meaning like you've been in prison for fucking 10 years and have demonstrated that you have been rehabilitated, you can get out on good behavior earlier than the end of your prison sentence. This is an effective solution to decrease recidivism, promote good behavior. It's completely conditional, and obviously there are significant fucking checks. That is so psychotic that people think like, oh, 75,000 violent criminals are on the streets now. No, motherfucker. These are people who have been serving a long-ass, incredibly inhumane criminal sentence that are now being allowed to roam the streets because they demonstrated good behavior. So here is the article.
Thank you.
76,000 California prisoner inmates could be released earlier on good behavior. But that doesn't mean that 76,000 people were let go overnight from jail. Like they open up the jails like when the Taliban took over Afghanistan. There's a good behavior program that was expanded for 76,000 prison inmates that were already serving out their sentences, that have served out at least a third of their sentences, that are eligible for release on good behavior. Inmates must demonstrate good behavior and in some cases a complete rehabilitation program to receive a reduction, complete rehabilitation for violent crimes, obviously. The state's prison spokesperson said the program doesn't include any automatic releases. She added that it will be months or years before anyone is released under this change. So people haven't even been released yet. And motherfuckers think like there's prisoners that were like doing rapes last week that are fucking on the streets this week doing more rapes. This fucking idea that like, you know, people are being let go is a laughable one. But people still say it no matter what. Prisoners go through psych evaluation where analysts decides if they're at risk to reoffend and consider how damaging an error would be for an analyst's reputation. They often get false positives for reassessment. So the idea that they're just releasing prisoners left and right is laughable. I know, it's like a childish one. Like, have you never even watched a fucking movie or something? Like, I don't understand. Like, have you never seen the process where they like, where they look at parole eligibility? Like in a movie even? Like, what do you think? They just go, oh, all right, sir. It says here you've done 10 rapes. Well, sorry, can't do anything. Gavin Newsom said you have to be released right now. Do they think progressives run courts and prisons? What the fuck? Yes, they do. They literally do.
Fox News alert now, the stunning rise in crime overwhelming Democrat-led cities across America, from violent threats on a New York City subway to deadly home invasions in Los Angeles. It's all sparking a national conversation and serious concerns about America's crime crisis and where the outrage over the violence will lead. You're watching Outnumbered. I'm Harris Faulkner. I'm joined now by my co-hosts, Emily Campagno, Kayleigh McEnany
to AOC. Were those imaginary smash and grabs? How do you guys like them apples, dude? Huh?
Criminals are breaking into stores, too. We've seen that. There's plenty of video of it. A wave of dangerous smash and grabs costing businesses tens of billions of dollars. However, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, or AOC as she likes to call herself, apparently doubts whether rampant smash and grabs are actually even happening. Telling the Washington Times, a lot of these allegations of organized retail theft are not actually panning out. I believe it's a Walgreens in California cited it, but the data just didn't back it up. The data, the video, the experiences, all of it. Jason, what is...
It's like, wow, AOC is not centering the lived experience of Louis Vuitton. into her rhetoric, and that's really fucked up. Not as fucked up as running a top of the hour ad break.
These types of things, we need community policing, and then we need prosecutors who enforce the law. But they're not doing that in these democratic cities.
Thank you, Nathaniel.
And you know what? One of the best
S103.
indicators, the metric that you can look at as to does America feel safe or not safe, are gun sales. Look at gun sales and ammunition sales. You go into a Cabela's or a place that sells ammunition, you can't even get it because America doesn't feel safe.
Because the thieves have stolen the bullets from the Cabela's.
And these Democrats are making conscious choices to defund or decrease the amount of money that goes into policing. The business community and the voters have got to stand up for themselves. I don't understand why these businesses aren't in there yelling and screaming at the mayor and the city council demanding that they be protected. And the consequence is the most poor, the most vulnerable among us, they're the ones that suffer the most consequences. That's what's so sad about it.
Yeah, the consequences of stealing shit in a smash and grab from a Louis Vuitton storefront is the real victims are never heard from. Partially because they can't speak, because they're not a human, they're a storefront, in which case they don't really have feelings or are human beings. Like, I mean, there's nothing that you can't actually try to add any sort of quantitative analyses to, or the feelings of a storefront. Not gonna happen. Also, when fucking Louis Vuitton bags, in an effort to maintain their price points, when Louis Vuitton bags are out of season and they haven't been sold, they get thrown in the fucking trash or burned. So a lot of these luxury brands engage in a similar thing. So you know, it's not do we care and consider the feelings of Louis Vuitton in that moment, or no? Probably not.
You know, Dagan, I'm going to guess that those business owners don't feel heard because they've been screaming for over 2 years now. I mean, and when you get to the point where they pick the rioters over the small businesses and the citizens in cities like we've seen in Portland and Seattle, I guess you kind of get the word, right? You understand it, that they don't care about them. But this is going to hurt everybody.
It does hurt everybody. It creates retail wastelands in impoverished neighborhoods that really can't afford to lose.
What the fuck are you talking about, you psycho? Retail wastelands? Literally go to Syracuse if you want to see what a fucking retail wasteland looks like, dumbass. You know what's a real retail wasteland? When manufacturing moves overseas and towns that relied on a singular fucking industry or a factory are no longer just a town where people live. Okay, go to upstate New York. I'll show you fucking retail wasteland, dude. Emptied out malls that look like fucking skeletons. Retail wasteland. So stupid, dude. You're literally showing people doing smash and grabs at Louis Vuitton in one of the wealthiest fucking neighborhoods. What do you mean? Oh, poor neighborhoods are like, how many of those stories revolve around fucking stealing from the dollar store, dude? These poor people. Like, yeah, dude, the Louis Vuitton store in Crenshaw is creating a retail wasteland.
Use a Walgreens or a CVS or a store that provides groceries. All of these major...
None of these are that. You're showing a video of someone with a bunch of Louis Vuitton running out of a Louis V store. You can't even do your fucking propaganda appropriately.
Can fight this. They have people on staff, large staffs, trying to track what's estimated to be $45 billion in annual losses these days in theft. And by the way, and I checked with Andy McCarthy about this, Joe Biden's Justice Department, Merrick Garland's Justice Department, and the FBI could do a heck of a lot more to fight.
The FBI? You want to sick the FBI on people that are doing like holiday robbing season retail crime? What the fuck? What are they going to do, bro? Bro, sending the FBI on people who are engaging in like, what is it called? Like foot pedal theft or whatever, like literally just like running away after doing a smash and grab, is like 1,000 times more insane than me telling the cops like my phone was stolen. You know what I mean? Like, it's literally the FBI. You want the FBI to prosecute shoplifting, but like the local police department can't even fucking engage in like a serious investigation for grand larceny. This is their legal analyst, by the way, Dagan McDowell.
Remember the Department of Justice went in after investigating the theft of Joe Biden's daughter's diary, alleging that it was involved in the interstate transportation of it, even though it might have been stolen out of a hotel. Or Merrick Garland said, oh, the Justice Department needs to investigate parents and help out the school boards that might be facing uproars at meetings. So they could get involved in prosecuting these crimes if they thought it was a problem. And by the way, just real quick, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has always talked about the screeching climate deniers. Well, she's a screeching crime denier, and that's worse.
Actually, I don't even.
She's a crime denier. Oh, AOC is saying that the heightened hysteria around like shoplifting is totally media manufactured. And when you look at the statistics, the reality is entirely different than how the media, including Fox News, is portraying it. Wait, what is this? Castro Safeway adds security gates, barriers. This automatic gate closes after each person enters the store. Barricades also make it harder for shoplifters to make a run for it. Safeway are closed off and exit and blocked with water bottles. Chapo Trap House millionaires can make fun of people for being upset about the crime wave all they want, but the barricaded security state that's emerging from it tears at the social fabric. This is a shit way to live in a city. Chapo Trap House millionaires. I have a friend who was jacked on the street for his video equipment. Another friend whose dad was mugged in broad daylight. A guy up the street was murdered in his house. A neighbor had a stray bullet fly through her living room. And I'm a middle-class guy. There are organized crime circles in the Bay who jack video news crews, already one fatality. Others that steal catalytic converters at night. Yeah, dude. I wonder why that happens, though. I really don't understand your take on this. Why do you laugh about it? Because crying about the social fabric being destroyed while simultaneously fucking feeding into the extended hysteria, the greatly fucking exaggerated hysteria of a crime wave where the data itself shows the exact opposite reality is hilarious. Because every single person on the left in unison uniformly agrees that we need to solve the underlying material inequities in order to deal with the crime wave that isn't even fucking happening. That is what is the problem. The problem is people just want extra police brutality and that will stop the crime. That's not how that fucking works. The way you stop crime is not by beefing up and militarizing the police. The way you stop crime is by reducing poverty, allowing people to opportunity. You have to fix the causes of crime and not the symptoms.